Commander Frank Martin stood at the viewport of the UES Vigilant, watching as the massive space station grew larger. Proxima Station hung in space like a glittering wheel, home to the Galactic Council and the place where 16 alien species made laws for the stars. His reflection showed a tired man with short brown hair and eyes that had seen too much. "Commander, we're cleared to dock at Bay 12, said Lisa Rice, the ship's intelligence officer. Her dark eyes never left her screen as her fingers moved quickly over the data. Frank nodded. "Good. Tell the diplomatic team to be ready in 30 minutes. As Lisa left, Frank thought about why they were here. For 100 years, the Proxima Accords had kept peace between humans and aliens. The treaty had many rules, but one stood above all. No one could make or use quantum displacement weapons. These weapons could tear apart atoms and destroy entire planets. Every species had agreed this line must never be crossed. But now, something was wrong. Captain Olivia Dawson entered the bridge, her uniform perfectly pressed. "Commander, are you ready for the council meeting?" "As ready as I'll ever be," Frank said. "Do you think they'll listen?" Olivia's face was serious. "They have to, if what we found is true." The ship shuddered slightly as it connected to the station. Frank took a deep breath. This meeting could change everything. 2 hours later, Frank and his team walked through the wide halls of Proxima Station. Aliens of all kinds moved around them. Tall, thin Vrel with their 4 arms, small round Gax that floated instead of walking, and a lizard-like Atrani with their golden scales. Frank watched an Atrani diplomat pass by. Something about them made him uneasy. "Commander," Lisa whispered, moving close to him. "I need to show you something. Now." Her tone made Frank follow without question. They found a quiet corner away from the crowds. "I broke their code," Lisa said, showing him her tablet. "The Atrani have been sending secret messages for months. Look at these energy readings." Frank studied the screen, his stomach dropping. The patterns could only mean one thing: quantum weapon signatures. "They're breaking the one rule," he said quietly. "Yes, and they're hiding it well. The Council doesn't know." Frank's mind raced. If the Atrani had quantum weapons, all human worlds were in danger. But accusing a major species without solid proof could start a war. "We need more evidence before the meeting," Frank decided. "Get everything you can." Lisa nodded and hurried away. Frank's communicator buzzed. A message from Earth Command, marked urgent. He opened it and froze as he read. 3 human colony worlds had gone silent in the last 6 hours. No distress calls, no signs of natural disaster. Just silence. His hands tightened into fists. This was no coincidence. Back on the Vigilant, Frank called his senior staff together. "We have reason to believe the Atrani have developed quantum weapons in secret," he told them. "And now 3 of our colonies can't be contacted." The room fell silent. Paul Harris, the science officer, spoke first. "If they used quantum weapons, there won't be much left to find." "Captain," Grace Martinez called from her communication station, "I'm picking up emergency signals from New Seattle Colony. They're under attack." Frank and Olivia exchanged looks. This changed everything. "Get me a direct line to the Council," Frank ordered, "and prepare the ship to leave dock immediately." "What are we going to do?" Olivia asked quietly. Frank's face hardened. "First, we'll warn the Council. Then, we'll find proof. And if the Atrani have truly broken the one rule." He didn't finish his sentence. He didn't need to. Everyone knew the stakes. Humanity had joined the galactic community as peaceful explorers. But before that, they had been warriors. If pushed, they would remember how to fight. And the galaxy would burn for it. The emergency council chamber buzzed with angry voices. Representatives from 16 species sat in a circle, with the human delegation facing the Atrani across the room. The Atrani ambassador, Thex4, stood tall, his golden scales catching the light as he spoke. "These accusations are baseless," Thex4 said, his forked tongue flicking between words. Humanity seeks to paint us as villains when they themselves build warships. Frank Martin stepped forward, his face calm despite his racing heart. 3 human colonies have gone silent. Millions of people, possibly dead. We have evidence that quantum weapons were used. The council leader, a blue-skinned Vrel, raised all 4 of her hands. Silence. These are serious claims. Commander Martin, show us your proof. Frank nodded to Paul Harris, who connected his tablet to the room's main display. Images appeared showing energy readings and strange radiation signatures. These patterns can only come from quantum displacement technology, Paul explained. We detected them near the Atrani homeworld, and again at our lost colonies. Thexphoriast, fake evidence. The readings could be from many sources. The council chamber grew louder as species took sides. Frank noticed how quickly some aligned with the Atrani. Had they planned this together? His communicator vibrated. A message from the Vigilant. URGNT. New Seattle under attack. Confirmed quantum signatures. Frank's blood ran cold. Not just one colony now, but another under active attack. He thought of history lessons about Earth's past wars, how nations had waited too long to act against threats until it was too late. Council leader, Frank said, his voice cutting through the noise. I just received word that New Seattle colony is under attack right now. I request immediate action against the Atrani. You have no right, Thexphor shouted. The council leader looked troubled. We need time to investigate these claims properly. Time. Frank's control slipped. While you debate, my people are dying. Grace Martinez hurried into the chamber and whispered in Frank's ear. Her face was pale with shock. Commander, I intercepted communications between Atrani ships. They're coordinating attacks on all major human settlements. Frank turned back to the council. This is not just a violation of the Accords. This is genocide. But he could see it in their eyes. Doubt, fear, political calculation. They would debate while humanity burned. Captain Dawson, he said into his communicator, prepare the Vigilant for immediate departure. Alert Earth Command. Code Black. The council leader rose. Commander Martin, you cannot leave during these proceedings. Watch me, Frank replied. He turned to the gathered representatives. 100 years ago, humanity joined this council in good faith. We signed the Proxima Accords, believing all species would honor the one rule that kept us safe. You've broken that trust. His team followed him as he walked toward the exit. Olivia Dawson's voice came through his communicator. Commander, Earth Command has authorized Operation Firebreak. All human ships are mobilizing. At the doorway, Frank turned back to face the council one last time. You should have kept your word, he said quietly. Because there's something you don't know about humans. We prepare for the worst even while hoping for the best. The journey back to the Vigilant was tense. Lissa Rice worked furiously on her tablet. Commander, I've analyzed the Atrani attack pattern. They're hitting our outer colonies first, working their way toward Earth. Which gives us time to prepare, Frank said. As they reached the ship, alarms sounded throughout Proxima Station. The council was finally reacting, but too late. The Vigilant broke away from the dock, ignoring hails from station control. Set course for Outpost Sierra, Frank ordered. Maximum speed. That's the closest colony to the Atrani border, Olivia noted from the captain's chair. Yes, and if anyone survived, they'll need help. The ship jumped to faster than light speed, stars blurring around them. Frank stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back, mind racing with plans and possibilities. The Atrani had broken the one rule. Now they would learn why that rule had protected them from humanity as much as it had protected humanity from them. The UES Vigilant dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Outpost Sierra. What they found made even veteran crew members turn away from their screens. Where a thriving colony of 30,000 people should have been, only debris floated in space. Pieces of the station, fragments of ships, and things no one wanted to name drifted in a slow, silent cloud. "Scan for survivors," Frank ordered, his voice tight. Lisa Rice worked at her station, then shook her head. "No life signs, Commander. But these radiation readings, this was definitely a quantum weapon." Frank turned to Olivia. "Record everything. The Council needs to see what their inaction has caused." On Earth, Admiral Jack Wilson stood in the control center of the North American Defense Command. Screens around him showed military leaders from around the world. "Operation Firebreak is now active," he announced. "All hidden defense platforms are to be powered up. Civilian evacuation to underground shelters begins in 1 hour." A general from the European Alliance spoke up. "Sir, New Seattle just went dark. Estimated casualties, 1.2 million. The room fell silent. Then Admiral Wilson's voice, steady despite the horror. "Send the activation codes for Protocol Omega. It's time to wake up our insurance policy." Back on the Vigilant, Engineer Dan Cooper worked frantically in the engine room. Sweat ran down his face as he connected wires and calibrated equipment. "This might work," he muttered to himself, "if I can adjust our shield harmonics to match the quantum frequency." His communicator buzzed. "Cooper, this is Commander Martin. How's that shield coming?" "It's experimental, sir. I've never tried to block a quantum attack before." "No one has." "Well, you might get your chance soon. We've detected 3 Atreides warships headed our way." Dan worked faster. The lives of everyone on board depended on his ideas. On the bridge, Frank watched the enemy ships approach on the tactical screen. "They don't know we've spotted them," Lisa said. "Their stealth technology is good, but not perfect." Frank considered their options. The Vigilant was primarily a diplomatic vessel, not a warship, but every human ship had hidden capabilities. "Activate weapon systems," he ordered, "and send a message to Earth. Tell them what we found at Outpost Sierra, and that we're about to engage Atreides vessels." Grace Martinez looked up from her communication station. "Sir, all channels to Earth are being jammed." Frank's expression hardened. "Then we fight alone." The Vigilant shuddered as its hidden weapon ports opened. The approaching Atreides ships, realizing they'd been detected, accelerated. "They're charging weapons," Lisa called out. "Fire first," Frank commanded. Beams of concentrated energy shot from the Vigilant, striking the lead Atreides ship. Its shields flared and failed, and the vessel exploded in a burst of light. But the other 2 ships returned fire. The bridge rocked violently as alarms blared. "Direct hit on decks 3 and 4, Olivia reported. "Shield generators damage." Frank grabbed the edge of a console to stay upright. "Return fire." Another exchange of weapons fire. The second Atreides ship spun out of control, venting atmosphere. The third ship, however, launched a small projectile toward the Vigilant. "Quantum torpedo," Lisa shouted. Frank's blood ran cold. Evasive maneuvers. The ship turned sharply, but the torpedo adjusted its course. Dan Cooper's voice came over the comm. "Bridge, I've got a partial quantum shield online. Redirect power to the starboard side." Olivia's fingers flew over her controls. "Done." The torpedo hit. The Vigilant shook like it might tear apart. Sparks flew from consoles. Crew members were thrown from their stations. When the chaos subsided, half the bridge systems were dark. Emergency lighting cast red shadows over everything. "Damage report," Frank called, wiping blood from a cut on his forehead. "We're alive," Olivia said with surprise. "Cooper's shield worked, at least partly. But we've lost engines and weapons." Lieutenant Kate Perry, the tactical officer, stood at her damaged station. "Commander, the main database contains all our evidence about the Atreides attacks. If that ship captures us..." Frank understood. The Atreides could erase all proof of their crimes. "I'll protect the core," Kate said, her voice steady. "But I'll need to manually disconnect it from the ship's systems." Frank met her eyes. They both knew what that meant. Someone would have to stay behind while the crew evacuated. "Do it," he said quietly. As the remaining crew headed for escape pods, Frank looked back at his ship. The Vigilant had been humanity's symbol of peaceful exploration. Now it would become a symbol of their resolve. The war had truly begun. The emergency council room beneath Washington, D.C. was filled with the most powerful leaders on Earth. Maps and data screens covered the walls, many showing red alert symbols where human colonies once existed. Vice Admiral Susan Morgan stood at the center table, her gray hair cut short, her eyes showing no fear despite the news she delivered. New Washington colony is gone. Liberty Station as well. Current death toll stands at 4 billion humans. President Richard Ward closed his eyes briefly. And the Vigilant. Commander Martin and most of the crew survived. They're on their way back in escape pods. Lieutenant Kate Perry stayed behind to destroy the ship's database rather than let it fall into enemy hands. A moment of silence filled the room for the lost officer. "It's time," the president finally said. "Activate Project Phoenix." Admiral Morgan nodded once and placed her palm on a scanner. "Computer, authorization Morgan Zulu 93. Implement Protocol Omega." Around the solar system, hidden things began to wake up. In the asteroid belt, massive doors opened in what had appeared to be ordinary rocks. Inside, automated factories that had been waiting for decades powered up their assembly lines. On Mars, underground bunkers revealed hangars filled with ships no human diplomat had ever acknowledged. On Earth's moon, weapon platforms disguised as research stations turned their sensors outward, searching for enemies. The burning of human worlds had begun. Now humanity's response would show why they should never have been provoked. On a small rescue vessel heading back to Earth, Frank Martin sat with the survivors of his crew. His uniform was torn, his face bruised, but his eyes burned with determination as he reviewed their situation on a tablet. "The Atreides think they have the advantage," he said to Olivia Dawson, who sat beside him. "They don't know about our preparations. Will it be enough?" she asked quietly. Before Frank could answer, Engineer Dan Cooper approached them, looking excited despite his injuries. "Commander, I've been analyzing the data from our battle," he said. "My partial quantum shield worked. Not perfectly, but enough to prove the concept. With proper resources, I could build a system to protect our major cities and remaining colonies." Frank looked at him with new hope. "How soon?" "A week for the first prototypes, if I get a proper lab and team." "You'll have it," Frank promised. The small ship shuddered as it changed course. Grace Martinez called from the communication station. "Sir, we're receiving a message from Earth. It's Admiral Morgan. She says to divert to Luna Base immediately. Something called Project Phoenix has been activated." Frank's eyes widened slightly. He had heard rumors about Phoenix during his highest-level briefings, but never confirmation. "Change course for Luna," he ordered. 2 days later, the crew of the Vigilant stood in a massive underground hangar beneath the lunar surface. Before them was a ship unlike any they had seen before, sleek, black, and clearly built for war. Admiral Morgan led them toward it. "This is the UES Firebrand, the first of our Phoenix-class vessels. It has been waiting here for 50 years, regularly updated with our latest technology, but kept secret from the Galactic Council." "How many do we have?" Frank asked, staring at the powerful ship. 12 complete. 50 more will be ready within a month now that the automated shipyards are active." Lisa Reyes looked shocked. "We've been building a war fleet all this time, while pretending to be peaceful." Admiral Morgan's face was grim. "Humanity learned harsh lessons on Earth before we reached the stars. Never again would we be caught unprepared. The Proxima Accords gave us peace, but we always planned for the day someone might break that peace." She turned to Frank. "The President has approved your promotion to Admiral. The Firebrand is yours to command. Your mission is to take the fight to the Atreides and their allies." Frank looked at the ship that would carry humanity's response to those who had broken the one rule. "What about the quantum weapons?" he asked. "Do we use them too?" Admiral Morgan shook her head. "We built them, but locked them away. We will win this war without breaking the rule ourselves if possible." Show the galaxy the difference between us and them. As his crew prepared to board their new ship, Frank addressed them. Today we stop running. Today we show the Atreides why breaking that one rule was their greatest mistake. Today we fight back. The crews cheered as the hangar doors above them began to open, revealing the stars. Stars that would soon witness humanity's fury unleashed. 68 years earlier, in the Grand Meeting Hall on Proxima Station, a younger Earth had sent its best to negotiate the Proxima Accords. Dr. Alan Bennett, a quiet man with brilliant eyes, had been part of that team. As the alien species argued about weapons limits and territory borders, he had stayed silent, watching and learning. Now, in a hidden facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, that same man, his hair white with age, but his mind still sharp, stood before a complex control panel. "I never wanted to use this," he said to the young assistant beside him. "The crucible was meant to be our last resort." He pressed his palm against the scanner. "Activate full production. Authorization. Bennett Alpha 7. Across the asteroid belt, the hidden factories increased their output. Metal from the asteroids themselves fed into enormous machines that worked day and night, building ships, weapons, and armor. What had been a trickle became a flood. In deep space, Lieutenant Ryan Clark and his Special Forces team moved silently through the darkness in stealth suits. Before them loomed an Atreides supply ship, unaware of their approach. "Remember," Ryan whispered through the team comm, "disable, don't destroy. We need their navigation data." 6 humans against an alien crew of 30. The odds should have been impossible. But in 15 minutes, the ship was theirs, the crew locked in storage compartments. "Download complete," said Sergeant Wendy Phillips, looking up from the alien computer. "We have their supply routes, patrol schedules, and fleet movements." Ryan nodded. "Send it to Admiral Martin. The Firebrand will put this to good use." In a distant part of the galaxy, the coalition of 16 species held an emergency meeting. Representatives argued loudly about the human response. "They were supposed to be weak," shouted the Vrel diplomat. "Your intelligence said they had no hidden fleets." The Atreides ambassador Thexvor hissed angrily. "They concealed their true capabilities. But it doesn't matter. Our quantum weapons will still destroy them." A soft voice cut through the noise. The Mox representative, small and gray-skinned with large eyes, spoke rarely but was always heard. "You never understood humans," it said. "They compartmentalize. They prepare. They learn from their own bloody history to never trust completely." The chamber fell silent. "What do you mean?" asked Thexvor. "I mean," said the Mox, "that you may have awakened something you cannot control. Humans don't think like us. They imagine the worst that could happen, then build defenses against it, just in case." On board the UES Firebrand, Frank Martin studied the tactical display showing the entire theater of war. Red dots marked Atreides fleets. Blue dots showed human forces. There were more blue dots than anyone outside Earth had ever imagined possible. "How long have we been building this fleet?" asked Lisa Reyes, staring at the display. "Since the day we signed the Accords," Frank replied. "Every year, more ships. Small ones built in secret Earth facilities. Larger ones assembled in the asteroid belt. All of them hidden from scans." Olivia Dawson entered the bridge, now wearing the uniform of a captain. "Engineering reports all systems ready, Admiral. Cooper's quantum shield prototypes have been installed on key vessels." Frank nodded. "And the special package?" "Loaded and secure." Frank turned to the communication station. "Grace, send word to all human ships. Operation Reckoning begins in 6 hours." He looked again at the display, at the 16 worlds that had turned against humanity. "They broke one rule," he said quietly. "They thought they would burn us. Instead, they lit a fire they cannot extinguish." Throughout human space, ships emerged from hiding. Some had been disguised as cargo vessels. Others had waited in gas giants or remote asteroid fields. Each captain received the same message: coordinates, and a single order. The greatest fleet humanity had ever assembled was about to make its first coordinated strike. The Atreides would learn that humans didn't just burn, they fought back with unexpected fury. And somewhere in deep space, Dr. Bennett's crucible continued to build, preparing for a war that might reshape the galaxy forever. The UEA's firebrand cut through space like a blade, its black hull absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Behind it followed 200 human ships of various sizes, all built for war, all hidden until now. On the bridge, Admiral Frank Martin stood with his hands clasped behind his back. Before him, the main screen showed their target, an Atreides military base on the moon of Vex 3, where quantum weapons were being loaded onto ships. All vessels report ready, Admiral, Captain Olivia Dawson said. Frank nodded. Begin the attack. Remember, conventional weapons only. Show them we can win without breaking the rule they broke. The human fleet spread out in perfect formation. The Atreides detected them too late, scrambling fighters as alarms blared across their base. Their surprise, Lisa Rice reported from her intelligence station. Their communications are chaotic. The first exchange of fire lit up space. Human ships moved with unexpected speed and precision. Their weapons were stronger than anything the Atreides had seen from Earth before. First defensive line breached, Olivia announced. On the Atreides base, panic spread as reports came in of human attacks not just here, but at 7 other locations simultaneously. How could humans have so many ships? How could they coordinate attacks across such distances? Frank watched the battle unfold, giving orders calmly. This was just the beginning. Grace, he called to his communications officer. How's the encryption project? Grace Martinez smiled for the first time in weeks. I did it, sir. I've broken their battlefield codes. We can intercept and understand all Atreides transmissions now. Excellent. Feed that data directly to Tactical. The knowledge gave human forces a critical edge. They could predict enemy movements, counter strategies, and strike at weak points. 3 hours later, the Atreides base was under human control. Engineer Dan Cooper led a team through the captured facility, his face grim as he examined the quantum weapons they found. They were planning to hit Earth next, he reported to Frank over the comm. These would have killed billions. Frank's jaw tightened. Secure the weapons. Make sure they can't be used. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Human forces had struck simultaneously at key enemy positions. The coalition fleet was in disarray, some species already withdrawing from the alliance with the Atreides. On the Firebrand's bridge, Frank received a secure transmission from Earth. Admiral Morgan's face appeared on his private screen. The Atreides are calling for talks, she said. They've realized they can't win. Can we trust them? Frank asked. No. That's why you're going to deliver our terms directly to their homeworld. Show them our full strength. The next day, the human fleet regrouped. Now 500 ships strong, with more joining hourly as they emerged from hiding, they set course for Atreides Prime. The journey took 4 days. 4 days in which the news spread throughout the galaxy. Humanity was not the peaceful, weak species everyone had believed. They had been preparing, waiting, watching, and now they were unleashing a military force that stunned even their allies. As they approached Atreides Prime, Frank addressed all ships in the fleet. Today we end this war. Not with genocide, not with quantum weapons, but with a show of force that leaves no doubt about our resolve. We will surround their homeworld. We will demand justice for our 4 billion dead, and we will make sure no one breaks the one rule ever again. The Atreides homeworld came into view, a beautiful blue-green planet with 3 moons. Around it orbited their defense fleet, impressive but now clearly outmatched. They're hailing us, Grace said. On screen, Frank ordered. Ambassador Thexvor appeared, his golden scales dull with stress. Admiral Martin, we wish to discuss terms. Frank stepped forward, his voice calm but filled with steel. Here are our terms. Unconditional surrender. Your leaders will stand trial for genocide. Your quantum weapons will be destroyed, and you will help rebuild what you destroyed. Or? Vex-4 asked. Frank didn't answer immediately. Instead, he gave a signal. Around the Atrani planet, hundreds more human ships appeared, dropping their stealth fields. Then hundreds more, a force so vast it encircled the entire world. There is no or, Frank said simply. For the first time, real fear showed in the Atrani ambassador's eyes. He finally understood the full consequences of breaking the one rule that had kept humanity at bay. 1 month after the surrender of the Atrani, the Galactic Council convened in a place no alien had ever expected, Earth. The Grand Hall in Geneva had been built specifically for this meeting, with spaces designed to accommodate all 16 species. Admiral Frank Martin, now wearing the formal white uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, stood at the center of the chamber. Around him sat representatives from across the galaxy, their faces showing a mix of fear, respect, and curiosity. For a century, we lived in peace under the Proxima Accords, Frank began. That peace was built on one fundamental rule, that no species would develop or use quantum displacement weapons. The Atrani broke that rule, and 4 billion humans paid the price. The hall was silent. No one dared interrupt. Today, we establish a new treaty, one with the same core principle, but with a difference. Frank paused, looking around the room. This time, humanity will be its enforcer. On the screens around the hall, images appeared showing the full extent of Earth's military capabilities, not just the ships they had revealed during the war, but the true scope of what they had built in secret over decades. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Some representatives whispered to their aides in shock. The human fleet was larger than the combined forces of all other species. We never wanted this role, Frank continued. We joined the galactic community as explorers and traders, but we also remembered our own history, how often peace was broken by those who thought others were weak. In a corner of the hall, Dr. Alan Bennett watched with sad eyes. His life's work, preparing humanity for this very day, had saved his species, but at a terrible cost. Outside the hall, a solemn ceremony took place. Captain Olivia Dawson stood with others from the Vigilance crew as they lit candles for Lieutenant Kay Perry and all those who had died in the conflict. Back inside, the representatives were signing the new treaty. Frank noticed some did so reluctantly, others with relief that the war was over. The Atrani delegation, now led by a new government after their previous leaders were arrested for war crimes, signed last. Their representative, a younger Atrani named Vex-4, approached Frank afterward. "We were told humans were weak," he said quietly, "that you had abandoned your warrior past." Frank shook his head. "We never abandoned it. We just hoped we wouldn't need it again." Later that evening, Frank stood on the balcony of the new Terran command station in orbit above Earth. The station was a marvel of engineering, built with technology humans had kept hidden until now. Captain Dawson joined him, looking out at the stars. "What happens now, Admiral?" "Now we rebuild, help the colonies that survived, honor those that didn't." Engineer Dan Cooper approached them, his face tired but proud. "The quantum shield network is complete. No one will be able to use those weapons against us again." Frank nodded his thanks. The shield was humanity's gift to all peaceful worlds, protection against the terrible weapons that had killed billions. Lisa Rice arrived last, carrying a datapad. "Admiral, I hate to interrupt, but we've detected unusual energy readings from the outer rim. Similar to quantum signatures, but different." Frank sighed. The galaxy was vast, and peace would always need guardians. "Assemble a team," he said. "The UEA's firebrand leaves in 2 days." As they turned to go, Frank took one last look at Earth below them. Beautiful, blue, and now revealed as the home of a species far more formidable than anyone had guessed. The one rule remained, but the consequences of breaking it were now clear to every species in the galaxy. Humanity had been tested by fire, had burned with grief and rage, but had emerged stronger. Never again would they be underestimated. In the darkness between stars, Dr. Bennett's crucible continued its silent work, building the shields and ships that would ensure humanity's survival against whatever threats might come next. Because humans always prepared for the worst, even while hoping for the best. This was their nature. This was why they had survived. And this was why the one rule would never be broken again.